So, complaining about the food your parents served up was a very 90s kid thing to do. This caused considerable tension because our parents were a post-war generation. When they were young, food was still somewhat scarce and they felt grateful to get anything at all. 90s kids had a slightly different perspective. Being born in the economically booming 80s, food was not so scarce, and the emergence of multiculturalism plus foreign holidays resulted in a generation with a far more discerning palate. Thus, traditional Irish and British cuisine was not met with much appreciation from my sister Jane, my brother Aidan, or myself. In fact, we took it upon ourselves to rename these dishes to what we thought were more appropriate names. Shepherd's pie, a savoury British casserole, was aptly named shepherd's yak. Irish stew, a slow-cooked thick stew typically made with lamb, became Irish hurl. And the traditional barbecue was known as a barber bath. Now, you could argue that we were just ungrateful children. But in reality, we were 90s children adapting to our circumstances, and we wanted more out of our cuisine than bland stodge. So, this next story is one of the most bizarre things that ever happened to me in the 90s. It was a normal Saturday evening. My dad was away on a business trip, and my sister Jane was out with her friends. So it was just my brother Aidan, my mom Elizabeth, and myself for dinner. On this particular evening, my mom served up some Irish stew, or Irish hurl as we called it. Once our plates were full, my brother and I sat there for a moment, contemplating the bland culinary delights before us. Before anyone had time to start eating, the telephone rang in our hallway. In the 90s, of course, no one had mobile phones, so to answer the phone you had to leave the room and pick up the landline. My mother got up from the table and went out to the hallway to answer the phone. My brother and I sat there waiting to see who it was. It turned out to be one of her friends, and that normally meant a long conversation was likely to take place. My brother and I sat there in silence, then looked at each other. Then, without exchanging a single word, we picked up our plates and stood up. In complete silence, we started walking towards the back door. I opened the back door and we continued walking towards the bio-bin. The bio-bin was a big green bin for biodegradable waste that was at the end of the garden. Once we arrived at the bio-bin, I opened the lid and we both tipped our steaming plates of Irish stew into the bio-bin. Once again in complete silence, we made our way back towards the house, holding our empty plates. Now, unfortunately for us, my mother only had a very brief conversation with her friend and re-entered the dining room at the exact same time that we were walking through the back door with our now empty plates. She glared at us. Trying desperately to find some way to excuse the situation, I said, "Oh, we were just so hungry." But my mum wasn't buying any of that, and she screamed at us, "Did you put your dinner in the bio-bin?" I looked back at her and tried to say in as convincing a tone as possible, no. But once again, my mum wasn't convinced and paced right past us out to the bio-bin to inspect it. Upon opening it, she could clearly see 2 steaming plates of Irish stew. She marched back into the house and said, "Why didn't you tell me you didn't like it?" And we protested, because we knew you'd react like this. Of course, wasting food like this in her childhood would have been inexcusable. At this point, my mum was absolutely livid, so I said, "We'll go out for a bit. We'll see you later." So my brother and I went out of the house and I bought us some chips so that we didn't go hungry. When we got home a few hours later, Mom had thankfully calmed down, and amazingly, we never spoke about the incident again. I don't even think Dad found out. So that was the story of Irish stew. Unlike my mom, my brother and I did speak about the story again. My brother's wife has heard it about 7 times, and my brother's son, who's 5 years old, also got the full story. The end.